Grace plays field hockey at Maumee Valley, and she has a beautiful voice. Today is presentation day.
But I'm going to sing mine.
It might look like Miriam's just playing, but this is some serious physics.
Open the floodgate!
Sachin's from Toledo, but lived on campus with 23 students from 7 countries.
My friends say hello.
Last semester, Jonathan and the boys built a lake water app that won him a pretty sizable check.
We bought a 3D printer for the school.
Because of Maumee Valley, you can do that.
Good evening. Welcome, everyone. So glad to have such a nice turnout for the program this evening. This was a commercial that was done for our open house, and congratulations and thank you to Melissa Kuhl for putting that together. Nice job, Melissa. So we have a lot planned for this evening. I hope you all picked some note cards when you came in. We do have a full presentation. We would like you to write down any comments that you have, any feedback for us, and any questions that you might have as they arise during the program. We'll be available afterwards if anybody wants to talk in the lobby. We're not going to do Q&As in this session here today, but we have scheduled some follow-up sessions for you if you have questions for us, and those meeting dates are here. These are scheduled by the area, so you'll hear about lower school tonight, and so if you want to come and learn more about the lower school, those are 2 dates on October 20th. Middle school on the 21st, upper school on the 22nd, and then we have a general session for any of you who missed those dates, and we'll email these to you at a later time. In addition to that, we have some other additional neighborhood gatherings scheduled. These are times for us to talk about other topics besides the schedule. We're also looking at curriculum design, homework load, the advisee program, and some general vision updates. So we look forward to having more opportunities to meet with you and tell you some of the things that we're thinking about. So the agenda for this evening is really going to answer 3 basic questions tonight. How have we stayed relevant for 130 years? This is the 130th anniversary of the school. It's the first question. The second is, why do we need to adapt now? And the third is, what are the things that we are doing? As we start out, I want to remind you that the schedule and the calendars are in process. We have, I'm going to share with you tonight the outlines of the schedule that we have planned for next fall. Some of the details will change as we continue to work on it through the year, but we're pretty happy with where we are with the intensives and block rotations that you're going to see tonight. Your engagement and support are vitally important to us, and so we hope you stay with us throughout the process. And again, I want to remind you that the schedule is just the structure of the day. The mission is what drives everything. It's our big picture. It outlines our values. The vision outlines where we're going. It brings the vision to life. The vision brings the mission to life. And the schedule is just how we organize the day to better accomplish both the mission and the vision. So we start this meeting, as we do often meetings, with our mission. And our mission is to prepare our students, to enable our students to become enlightened, compassionate, contributing citizens of the global community, while at the same time prepare them for their best opportunities in higher education and beyond. This has been our mission at least since the late 70s, early 80s. It is reviewed pretty much annually by the Board of Trustees, most recently last spring, as we are in the process for our ISACS accreditation. And it is affirmed every time we review it. The board looks at it and says, yeah, that pretty much describes who we are and what we value. And so it's regularly reviewed. Underneath this are some beliefs. And these are beliefs that we don't talk about directly, at least not in this context, but they're important to us. We believe that every child at Maumee Valley can learn and has greatness within. We believe that every child learns differently. We believe that a school should grow the whole child. We believe that learning should be active, that learning by doing is preferred. We believe that teachers should know each child's unique interests. We believe in intrinsic motivation. We believe that is stronger and more important and lasting than extrinsic motivation. So these things are what we think about when we plan curriculum, when we think about the schedule. These are values that we have and beliefs that we have that are beneath the surface of our mission. This is the vision. And how many of you were able to come to one of the neighborhood gatherings last fall? Good, a good number of you. Well, I'm going to do a little recap of this, so if you haven't followed along or you weren't able to come to those earlier meetings, you'll get a chance to catch up a little bit now. So the first thing I'd like to point out is that we have 3 pillars in the vision, and that Maumee Valley education is personal, experiential, and global. And those pillars rest firmly on our foundation of our mission. And at the top of that, that edifice, which by the way looks a little bit like Wolf Gallery, is something, it's our mantra. So we want to be student-centered. We ask what is in the best interest of our students as we make decisions. And so I want to do a little bit about each of those pillars. And so Maumee Valley, Maumee Valley education is personal. And by personal, we mean that our teachers know our students, they care about their students, and they look out for our students. Of course we mean that, and that's been a long tradition at Maumee Valley. But we're beginning to talk about something a little bit more than that when we talk about personal. We're talking about personalizing. We're talking about ways that we can create pathways for students that are unique. Because as we said earlier, we believe every student is unique. Everybody is special, everybody has interests. And we know it's in their advantage, it's to their advantage to know what those things are and to develop those. So we do that already in a number of significant ways. An example I like to give is our strings program. If you're a strings player at Maumee Valley, Colleen Seberg, I saw her earlier, she's there. Colleen Seberg latches on to you. She grabs a hold of you and she doesn't let go. 12 years through the school, and you get chances to play in ensembles with kids at your skill level. You get a chance to study not just with Colleen, but she'll match you up, pair you up with teachers in the community, often with a symphony. She will make sure that you're in the right groups in the community, the junior youth orchestra, the youth orchestra, the state orchestra. Kids play at school events for one another. They play at special events like open house. They play at civic events. They have lots of opportunity. They learn to read music. They learn to communicate music. They learn to collaborate with other musicians. It's a rich experience that is special to you if you play strings. What about if your proclivity or interest is woodwinds? We don't have a path for those kids here at the school. Or what if it is technology? What if it's coding? What if you want to be a coder? We have a student who self-identified or recognized his interest in coding in 3rd and 4th grade. What path do we have through the school for that child? That's what we mean by personalizing the education. How do we help kids identify what their proclivities are, their interests and their passions, feed those, encourage those, support those? And as in the string ensemble example, we don't have to be the providers of everything for those kids, but we have to be the connectors. We are the orchestrators. We make it happen. We connect them with people in the community who share their interest and who have talent and can share that with the students. So that's what we mean by a personal education when we talk about the vision. And I'm going to, in a little bit, talk about why that's important, why that's very important to colleges when we get to that part. And experiential education is something that I think we all know, and it's long been a part of a Maumee Valley education, and that is kids learn best by doing. Research shows that 2 weeks after you learn something by reading it, you remember about 10% of it. If you get your hands on it and you do something with it, if you experience it, you remember about 70% of it. Learning by doing is a rich experience. It helps to bring it inside. It helps kids put it into long-term memory. It helps create deeper, richer learning experiences for our students. Now, this is also very familiar to you. This is something that you see all the time at Maumee Valley. You see it in the Early Learning Center with our play-based curriculum. You see it in the primary where kids do the community garden. You see it in the lower intermediate in projects that they do, like their Western Movement projects. You see it in the upper intermediate, the biome project that they just completed. You see it in the middle school. This is an example there. I went down with the kids to Swan Creek, and they were looking for the microbial life and whatever other creatures they could find in the water, and they were doing water quality testing. You see it in the high school in the Winter program, Model UN program, lots of experiential learning experiences at Maumee Valley. We're going to focus on those as we go forward. And when I meet with alumni, what do they talk about? They talk about their experiential learning experiences at Maumee Valley to a person, no matter how old they are. And I'm going to give you an example of that in a second. Next is global learning. A Maumee Valley education is global. And it's been that way for a while at Maumee Valley, actually. But we've really enriched that in recent years with our international student program, which started out as a mission-driven effort to bring more international students to this school. We had Swedish exchange students dating back from the 70s, and we said, hey, this works out really nicely. We bring Swedish students with a sister school. Let's develop some other sister schools. So we developed one in China, and we developed one in Ecuador. The one in Ecuador works out now with our middle school. Those kids come over and spend a couple of weeks with our families in the middle school. And then, of course, we now have 41 international students in this school. Those are in the high school. That's 20% of our student body in the high school. And by the way, that's our goal. So we've achieved that. We aren't looking to add more international students. We thought 20% would be a good balance, and we think it is a good balance. We're happy with that. Now we're going to work on diversifying that international student body. But we've reached our goal. And we built an on-campus housing as part of that. So lots of rich experience. There's classroom experience like international relations, Model UN, lots of things that the kids do, our world languages program that support the global aspect of a Maumee Valley education. So Maumee Valley education is personal, experiential, and global. Before I get to this, I want to tell you a little bit about how that connects to our history. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got a 25-page document in the mail from a former Maumee Valley student, Mr. Cressman. Mr. Cressman took the time to write about his experience at Maumee Valley. He was at Maumee Valley from 1944 to 1948. That was 4th grade to 8th grade for him. He was from France. He was here with his family, and he went back to France for high school in 9th grade. He went on to college, and he's getting on in age, so I'm guessing he's in his upper 80s now, and he said, I didn't want to lose this, so I wanted to capture something about my experience, and he said, of all the schools I've studied in, and the things that I've learned in an educational institution, he said, the years that I had at Maumee Valley were the richest and had the most impact on me. And he called out a teacher, Hugh Coriel, who I hear about periodically as I travel and meet with alumni. And he said, Mr. Coriel, to teach us American geography, U.S. geography, bought every kid in the class a road atlas, put it down in front of us, and he said, okay, you guys are going to teach yourselves and one another geography. And the way you're going to do it is, here are your conditions. You can travel 350 miles a day. You have to visit any natural sites that are nearby, and you have to visit any historic sites, and you have to visit the major metropolitan areas, and you have to research them, and you have to tell the rest of us about it. And so it was, this is the 1940s. It's student interest driven. They got to, chart their paths around the country on their things. So they got to go where they wanted to go, so it was engaging to them. And they got to teach each other. And he said, I learned U.S. geography through that experience. It was a powerful experience, and I'll never forget it. The other thing that Mr. Coriel did was when they went to learn world geography, He had them all adopt a country. Mr. Cressman adopted France, his home country. And they went out to the field, and they put a stake in the ground where their countries should be relative to one another. And then they made relative size plots of land to correspond to their particular country. And then he said, okay, put the natural landforms in. So they got piles of dirt and built mountains, dug out places where there were waters and oceans, scraped off the turf where there were a desert, and put in buildings and things where there were cities. He said, I'll never forget it. It made a lasting impact on me. And so that's what, so when we talk about this as our future, it's also our past. And that's the point I'm bringing home. Maumee Valley is a personal and experiential and global environment, and has been. It's in our DNA. So the question I ask now is, how have we stayed relevant for 130 years? We're a 130-year-old school. For the past 130 years, we've been the educational leaders in Northwest Ohio with a national reputation for innovative, child-centered education in an extraordinarily multicultural environment. You just don't find a school, an independent school, or maybe even a public school environment that is as richly diverse as our school is. Something to be proud of, and it's a great gift for our children. You might be asking now, as we talk about how we adapt to the future today, you might be asking questions that parents have asked in the past. I'm sure they did, which is, why do anything differently? We have a great school. We love it just as it is. Don't change anything. So perhaps the Smead School, the Smead sisters were asked that in 1884 when they moved the school from Batavia, New York, put it on a train, and moved it to Toledo, Ohio in 1884. Maybe the parents at that time said, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Perhaps when the school moved to Reynolds Road, out of the Old West End, and moved out to the country, dirt road, Glendale was a dirt track at the time, became coeducational. I know that when it became coeducational, parents were asking, what are you doing? Why are you adapting? Certainly when they became a country day school and integrated nature into the curriculum, people were asked, wait a minute, shouldn't kids be learning at a desk from books? Then in the 60s, when the school integrated as part of the civil rights, as that movement was happening in our culture, and the leaders of the school looked around them and said, we need to look more like the city we live in. We need to look more like America. And they integrated. Certainly, people were asking, why adapt? Why are we doing this? Also, when the school developed the open classroom format in the lower school and tore down the walls and circled the desks, people were asking, why adapt? Did I skip one? In the late 70s, early 80s, when the school adopted the Winterim program, what do you mean you're going to take 3.5 weeks out of class and go to France or study, build musical instruments or whatever it is they were doing? Certainly that question was asked. And I know the question was asked when we introduced iPads. I heard it a lot. Why are we doing that? Why are we bringing technology into the classroom? What are these iPads are going to be a distraction? Why do this? And also when we joined the Hybrid Learning Consortium and introduced online learning courses for our students. It's natural when you evolve and you adapt that it makes some people uncomfortable. Clearly, Maumee Valley is not the same school it was when it was founded 130 years ago. The reason it isn't is because it is adapted to the changing times to remain relevant to the needs of their students. As those of you who have been here for the past few years know, we are in the midst of adapting again with international students, iPads, and Hybrid Learning Consortium, and now by moving from a 100-year-old industrial model school schedule to a schedule that provides the flexibility and the time our students need to prepare for their world. So why adapt now? So I mentioned the industrial model. Did you know that when compulsory education in the United States was adopted in the early part of the 20th century, that what was happening in our country was a mass migration from farms to cities. And that what this compulsory education was designed to do was to prepare people for standardization, so that they could go from living on a farm where you woke up and looked at what the weather was and decided what you were going to do that day, looked at what the conditions were and made independent choices that were right for you. It depended on the season, the weather, and the needs of your farm, to coming in and working in an assembly line doing the same thing day after day, where your judgment was not needed, not welcome, and where you need to be at the same place doing the same thing day after day. Standardization. The model of education we use today is built on the industrial model. It's not about the kind of education we're talking about now, which is customization and not standardization. This is an actual schedule that we found from the Maumee Valley in 1909, Maumee Valley schedule. Math, science, Latin, history, lunch, English, Bible study. One class after the next, you do something for 40, 45 minutes, you get up and move and do the next. Here's our current schedule on the right. Hasn't changed much. Some of the topics, some of the classes have changed, but we still get up and we move 2 o'clock at 50-minute periods. And it doesn't matter. You could be in a math class learning the most exciting thing you've ever learned, and class is over, you've got to get up and you've got to shift gears. And in that transition, things are lost. Time is lost. Your focus is lost. I went down to the Swan Creek with middle school kids to do their water testing, and we had a class period. And we had to be prepared to go down there. The teacher met with us, told us everything we could expect. We had a good day. She had been down there earlier in the morning, laying everything out for us to expedite the process. We got down there. We had to get into the water, which took at least 10 minutes of kids screaming and complaining about how cold it was. So we got into it. They lost their focus. We had to refocus them. It took them a while to learn the skill of capturing things in their nets and to bring them out of the water, and then to sift through them and to see what they had. And then class was over and we had to come back up. There was no time for reflection. There was really not much time for them to look at what they had found. So we had a great experience, but we didn't have a time frame for it. And science is a great example of something that takes time. And so it's an example of how form dictates function. And so we're locked into a schedule that dictates what can happen in that time frame. The world is radically different. So again, I'm answering the question, why adapt now? It's a different world. We've got the globalization. The economies of the world are intertwined. Business, medicine, education, they're all international now. Communication is instant and access is immediate. Can't tell you how many people from China I deal with on a regular basis who are interested in what we're doing and engaging me in doing things over there. Here, from Toledo, Ohio. So you know that's happening all around the world. I've just met with my colleagues at an Ohio Association of Independent School meetings on Monday and Tuesday this week. They're all talking about the same thing. Globalization is here and it's here to stay, and that's the world that our kids need to compete in and to thrive in. Remember when we needed a travel agent to book our flights, a dealer to buy or sell a car, a broker to buy stock, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those things now you can do online. We're in an age of abundance. Technology available to us anytime, anywhere. We get access to information, data, human resources, and content of all kinds. Students can get an entire online degree from Stanford University online. They can take classes from professors at Harvard, MIT. They can study math on Khan Academy. There are so many resources from them. They can learn all kinds of things from experts that aren't even associated with schools. They can learn skills like playing a musical instrument or how to code. all online and through online communities, people helping each other learn. It's a different world. I read an article for magazine where the president, Gilpin, Drew Gilpin Faust, the president of Harvard, said that yes, very competitive to get into Harvard, and the trick or the way that you gain admission to Harvard is by becoming an interesting person. And that's an interesting concept, because how do you become an interesting person? You become an interesting person not by just learning to do homework every night, follow all the rules and the regulations. You become an interesting person by developing your own interests, your own passions, your own sense of direction, your own sense of purpose, and actually starting to accomplish things along that road. I went on the Harvard website to see what they say to their potential prospective admissions applicants. These are the questions that they ask, and those are some of the words I took from it. How have you used your time? This is the questions that Harvard says think about, reflect on before applying to Harvard. They ask, how have you used your time? Do you have initiative? What motivates you? What sort of human being are you? Do you care deeply about anything, intellectual, extracurricular, personal? What have you done with your interests? Do you appear to have a genuine commitment or a leadership role? How open are you to new ideas and people? These are the things that we need to prepare our students for. Yes, they need to have high test scores, and we've always done that at Maumee Valley, and we'll continue to do that. But we need to go beyond that. We need to do more than that. At MV, we create opportunities and experiences that will prepare students to answer these questions. And I think we already do a good job of that, and we will continue to do a good job of that. I gave the Stanford example last year at the meetings, and that example was greatly illustrated by Amy Eustick, who weighed out 40,000 popcorn kernels. And the story was that Stanford had 40,000 applicants for 1,400, 1,600, I don't remember the number now, freshman openings. And of those 40,000, 35,000 were qualified. So they had the grades, they had the test scores, they had a folder full of activities that they did, clubs and sports and things. And so the challenge for Stanford and other selective colleges is, how do they choose from among that group of people? And so what we did in the example, you'll remember, those of you who were there, is we popped one kernel of popcorn and we buried it down in there. And that's our challenge at Maumee Valley, is to help pop that kernel, that our children, to help them explode with interests, with passions, commitment, and curiosity. We need to help our kids stand out. So our college counselor asked some of the colleges that she works with, she showed them our schedule and told them about our vision and asked them what they thought about it. Princeton Admissions Office said, we're looking for real-world experience that is built into the curriculum is even better. University of Toledo said, in a world where experiential learning is key, any opportunity to increase the engagement of the students, both inside and outside the classroom, the world, and in the community in which they live, is a great opportunity and should be fully embraced by parents and educators alike. University of Michigan said that applicants are more competitive because they have firsthand experiences. University of Chicago said, we're supportive of curricula that, like this one referring to Maumee Valley's, both create more instructional time and allow students time to contextualize what they're learning within the field experiences. And Hobart William Smith said, this new schedule will allow students to flourish both inside and outside the classroom, gain critical skills and experiences that will make them even more marketable to college admissions office. We are fortunate to have with us the assistant admissions director from Vanderbilt. the Senior Assistant Admission Director, Maria Ornelas, thank you, to talk about what Vanderbilt is looking for in their top applicants. Maria Elena Ornelas attended Vanderbilt University and earned her BA in 2005 and her Master's in Education in 2008 from Vanderbilt. She joined Vanderbilt's Office of Undergraduate Admissions in June 2008 as an admissions counselor, and she currently serves as the Senior Admissions Assistant Director and is one of the Ohio admissions counselors. She's a member of the Southern Association for College Admissions Counseling and National Association for College Admissions Counseling, and has presented at various workshops. And we're so pleased you could be here, and please come up if you would. Can you hear her? Go ahead.
Can you all hear me? Okay, perfect. So yes, I do apologize for my tardiness. We actually had a college fair earlier this evening that I may have seen some of you guys at. For our experience, we are one of these selective institutions that really does focus on a holistic approach, but as was mentioned earlier, we can easily fill our class of 1,600 first-year students time and time again with all of our applicants that do apply to Vanderbilt. So when it comes down to the very, very hard decisions that a lot of selective institutions have to make to offer admissions to these qualified students, we are looking for that well-rounded and what we term as balanced student. And where that really comes into play is, again, those practical, in-the-field experiences that a lot of our students tend to take advantage of within their high school opportunities. So, for example, we at Vanderbilt University actually focus on 5 main factors: academic achievement, standardized testing, extracurricular involvement and leadership, recommendation letters, of course, and of course their essay that's turned in with the rest of the application materials. Out of those 5 main factors, we are looking for that it factor. What makes the student stand out within the rest of the applicant pool? And we do that within each individual student's context from their high school environment. So with that in mind, we do encourage our students to really take advantage of the coursework, of the experiences that are made available to them, while also making sure that they're able to balance that with their interest areas and, of course, their eventual career aspirations. So we do see intensive programs, for example, at Hawkins School, which is just outside of Cleveland. We do see students take advantage of these opportunities, and it improves their critical thinking skills. It provides them with opportunities for scientific inquiry, and especially when our students are asking us about those opportunities on the university level, on the undergraduate level, we do want to see that they have taken advantage of the opportunities that are made available to them in the high school level as well. The other factors that really factor into our conversations within our admissions committee when we're really haggling, I guess I should say, over the murky middle, the students who would do extremely well, academically qualified students, but who the last remaining spots are made available to. That is when we find that we have to pull out all the unique characteristics of our applicants to really be able to make that hardcore sell for our director and our dean of admissions, to be able to let them know what they could possibly add to our classroom communities, but also to our social community on the campus. And this is where we find that those practical experiences, the field experience, really plays a huge role within that part of our committee discussions. So I was really just asked to talk about how our particular process works, having traveled with some of our colleagues at Princeton University, Dartmouth University, and a few others, or Dartmouth College, I should say, and quite a few other different colleges as well. We are able to talk about our own processes and really figure out how we are similar in kind of our goals to shape that freshman class. And it is a shaping. It's not just a minimum SAT, minimum ACT, minimum GPA. We are really looking for those students who are going to make our classroom experience and social community a really better place than what has been before. So,
great.
I don't know if that's all.
Yep, it's good.
Perfect.
Thank you, Maria.
Great, and thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you. I'm happy to be able to tell you, Maria, that we don't have any kids in the murky middle at Maumee Valley. So we were talking about, before Maria interrupted us, we were talking about why adapt now. We talked a little bit about how the world has changed. We talked a little bit about how colleges have changed and how just competitive it has become for selective colleges in the United States. And it's not just because of the Common App, which exploded the number of kids that apply, but it's also because our universities in the United States are really international organizations, and now so there are kids from all around the world applying. And that's why, by the way, international kids are interested in coming to Maumee Valley, because they know that it gives them a leg up to get into a university in the United States. So the world is different, and colleges are looking for something different, and our employers are looking for something different. So this is a National Association of College and Employers survey. It's a nonprofit group that links colleges and career placement offices with employers. And this survey was asking managers what skills they prize when they hire college graduates. Here are the top 10 in order of importance. So you see all the kinds of things that we're talking about: collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity, independence, communication skills, which, by the way, has long been a hallmark of a Maumee Valley education, resourcefulness, analytical thinking, technically skilled, digitally literate, written communication, and leadership. Some of these things are things that, that just happen by osmosis, and that we want to make sure that they become intentional. We want to teach collaboration, teach critical thinking, teach creativity, and for those to become part of our curriculum model and not just something that is a side benefit of what we do. So here's a little video of what employers want.
I'm looking for proven track record. I'm looking for a proven ability to deliver and to execute.
I'm always looking for people that are excited about learning and developing so that they can make a career out of this as opposed to a single job.
An aptitude to do any type of job, as employers aren't necessarily looking to lock somebody into one role.
Traits to me are almost more important than skills. What you're looking for is someone who can be a leader, who can be responsible, who can help organize and understand the tasks and get them done, but also someone who is obviously intelligent and hardworking, and those traits are more important than any set of skills you can show me.
I'm looking for someone who's entrepreneurial, who has a desire to help others, someone who has an active background in communication and complex thinking skills.
You have to be able to communicate well and work well with other people, because it's going to take all those problem-solving minds coming together to really be able to figure out the solution for the business.
So what I heard them say is that we're looking for lifelong learners, looking for flexible students, adaptable. We're looking for leaders. We're looking for kids who are organized. We're looking for kids who are entrepreneurial, workers who are effective communicators, complex problem solvers, and collaborators. Kind of the same list that we were looking at with this survey. So how do we train kids for that? And the question is the model that we have now with the class schedule that we have better suited to teach some of those skills than the model we're considering? We don't think so, and I'll explain why as we move on. So again, why adapt now? It's a quote from somebody that I admire a lot. Met him several times. I've heard him speak and had conversations with him about what we're doing here. He's a professor at the University of Oregon. He's an internationally known scholar, author, and speaker. And here's what Yang said. He said, "The reason is simpler than many would like to accept. Education has been preparing our students for an economy that no longer exists. Technology and globalization have transformed our society. Machines and offshoring have led to the disappearance of traditional middle-class jobs, jobs our education have been making our children ready for. The boomerang kids," those are kids that come back and live in your basement, "the boomerang kids are not poorly educated, but miseducated. They were prepared to look for jobs, but not to create jobs. They were prepared to solve problems, but not to identify problems or ask questions. They were prepared to follow instructions, but machines can follow instructions more precisely and, more important, with less cost." This idea that they were prepared to solve problems but not to identify problems or ask questions. That's something that we talk about a lot. So if you are the teacher and you identify the problem, tell the kid what the problem is, train them to solve that problem, and then give them 10 more just like it to solve, are we training them to study a situation, identify what the issues are, think creatively, problem solve collaboratively to achieve results, and to be independent thinkers and independent learners? Can we do both? And yes, we can. And the new schedule that we're looking at will allow us to do that. So it's a little bit about what business wants and how that's different. So we asked students, what do you want? These are not actually our students. This was, Maria mentioned Hawken Academy. The head of Hawken is a good friend of mine, and I was talking to him on Monday when I was preparing for this, and he shared this slide with me. This is a group of seniors at Hawken. He asked them what they were looking for. They're looking for more choice. They're looking for real-world classes, first-hand experiences, integrated curriculum, group work, diversity of people, cultural immersion experience, internships. They want to find their passions. They want to learn how to think, and they want to teach out-of-the-box thinking. And so that's something that we think the new schedule that we're looking at will better enable us to do. So our students are looking for something different. They're looking for choices, they're looking for connections, and they're looking to make a difference. So I want to tell a little story about a business development club that we have at the school. I traced the genesis of this club to an entrepreneurship winterim that we had 4 or 5 years ago. And that winterim put kids into business groups, and they were asked to develop a business plan for a service or an object, something that they invented, and then to pitch that. And so they were taught how to develop a business plan. They were taught how to make the presentation, and then we brought community leaders together, and they made their sell. And there was a representative there from Bowling Green State University, and they ended up granting the winning team 3 full-pay scholarships to Bowling Green State University. That got us in the school thinking about kids who might be interested in business, and so we started with some students who were interested a business development club. And we thought, well, how can we connect that to the business of the school? So we started looking at what we do in the school and what's important to us. And so we got them talking to our endowment trustees and working with our investment committee. So they met with Credit Suisse, who manages the school's endowment. And so they met with them and learned how we manage that endowment. They also joined us in some conversations we had with city officials on the development of the Reynolds Road corridor. So we had students sitting in those conversations on the development of Southwick. And so from that, we have a student who is now going to be doing a winterim downtown, working with the Economic Development Office of the mayor downtown for winterim. We have another student last year who went to Chicago and worked with a futures trading company and our Credit Suisse, our investment brokers. We have a symposium tomorrow on social entrepreneurship, led by some of those students who created that, invited area students from other schools, civic leaders. We have somebody coming from South America, from Colombia, to do a presentation. We have civic leaders here doing presentations, and that's going to be hosted in our Milhan auditorium tomorrow. By the way, you're all welcome to attend. That's from 11 to 2 if you're interested. And in addition to that, we have a student who got so passionate about this that they did this presentation that I want to share with you. And this shows one student, Zane Beatty, who used his experiences to develop his narrative and gain acceptance into Mercy College summer program in Manhattan.
There are 3 reasons why I will make a good leader. 1, I've already had leadership success. 2, I understand the importance of philanthropy. And 3, I'm able to think strategically.
One reason why I will be, and I am a good leader, is because I am a part of both 2 varsity sports, basketball and soccer. Both of these sports have taught me how to work together as a team to achieve a common goal, accountability, and responsibility for my own actions.
As a leader, I understand the importance of philanthropy. I helped our school raise money through phonathons, and I helped our community service club connect with different local organizations. But what I'm most excited about is the bank I helped co-found at our school. Yes, the bank provides traditional banking services, but what is really unique about the bank is the philanthropy arm it has, where we redirect our annual earnings to the school and the community. For example, we plan on purchasing tickets to our spring production Hairspray and inviting underprivileged kids from our community to enjoy our production. I'm able to think strategically. This is the area our school has been located in for over 100 years. As you can tell, it's in a state of depression. The mall has been torn down and the hotel is scheduled for demolition. But I believe the area is ripe for economic revitalization, and I'm going to make a difference. I'm meeting with local business leaders and brainstorming how to drive economic change in this area. There are 3 reasons why I will be a good leader. 1, I have already had leadership success. 2, I understand the importance of philanthropy. And 3, I'm able to think strategically and not just complain about something, but take action.
So, yeah, he mentioned, Zane mentioned the student bank that they started. So they fundraised some seed money for it, and then they lend money to student organizations that haven't raised money yet for their cause, and then they pay them back to the bank. So they're running it just like a bank, and they've had to learn how they make decisions about loans and what's collateral and what's not collateral, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So it's been a great experience for them, and this is something that has grown up around the edges of things, in part because some teachers and administrators really have identified the need and have enabled this for kids. But this happens outside of class, outside of school time. So this is an example of creating a deep path for kids who have an interest in business. How do we formalize that kind of thing so it's not just happenstance, but that we have these pathways for students in our school to develop their passions, just like Zane has. So I've mentioned that the world is different, that businesses are looking for something different, colleges are looking for other things in kids, that the students are interested in a wide variety of things. But I also need to say that I think our system is flawed, the current system. As I said before, it was built for an industrial age. It had a very similar schedule, almost identical for the past 100 years. I mean, really? We haven't thought of a better way to organize time than they thought of in 1909. It's a high-pressure, high-stakes testing, really puts a lot of stress on our students. These 50-minute classes I mentioned earlier, if you're having a great experience and time runs out, and 50 minutes is not a lot of time to organize activities for kids. It just is not much time. And so we think about the opportunities that are lost because teachers have to think in 50-minute time frames. And truthfully, a 50-minute class period is not 50 minutes. In our high school 50-minute class periods, there are no passing periods between classes. None. So one 50-minute class ends, the next one begins. So what happens is 5 minutes before a class is over, teachers start to wind up, the kids are putting away their book, maybe they're putting the homework on the screen, the kids are starting to think about their next class. They get up, they have to go to their lockers, they might have to go to the bathroom, they talk to friends, they get into their next class, they're talking as they're coming in and sitting down. Maybe they're thinking about something that their girlfriend said to them on the way into the room, or they're thinking about the basketball game, they've got to transition. They've got to get out their materials. They realize they forgot something, go back to their class. I mean, really, it's not hard to imagine that you're robbing 15 minutes combined between those two classes and making those transitions. So fewer transitions will take away that time and give our kids more continuity, greater spans of time to explore things. The homework load that kids get. So if you're in 5 or 6 classes, and each teacher is told they can give 30 to 45 minutes, and maybe some teachers push that up to 60 minutes a night, you're looking at 3 to 5 hours of homework a night. And if a student has 3 to 5 hours of homework and they're in a club, or they're in the theater production, or they're on a sports team, it maybe belong to a church, they're all members of families. and they do need to eat and sleep. When does that happen? This is why we find our students to be stressed. And so I think our homework load prohibits our students from pursuing opportunities and activities outside of school. And these are activities that really can enrich their lives and I think enrich their opportunities and prepare them better. I think it's important right here that I say a couple things. One is this is not about watering down a Maumee Valley education. I don't want anybody to think that. Maumee Valley has always been and will continue to be an intellectually challenging and stimulating school with a demanding program. We're not talking about making it easy. We're talking about making it manageable, and we're talking about creating opportunities for kids to dig deeply into areas that they're passionate about. So I don't want to give the impression that, that we're looking at doing anything that will diminish kids' test scores, which is a measure right now that they need to have in order to get looked at by schools. We recognize that, and until that changes, we need to focus on that. By the way, the kind of teaching that you do for that is a little bit different, because that's a different kind of recall, and so it's something that we will continue to pay attention to. Also want to say this at this time, that there are differences of opinion in this room, with our students, in our faculty, and with our parents about how much homework is the right amount of homework. And I can tell you, as a father of a son and a daughter, there was differences in my house about how much homework was right. In part, my daughter was a perfectionist. She had to do everything perfectly, and she had to do it all before she went to bed. And she was proud of her work, and it didn't matter if she didn't care about the class or didn't care about the assignment. She did it well. My son, on the other hand, if he was interested, he did a good job. If he wasn't interested, he didn't. And so the conversation in our household was to Emily, Emily, stop working, go to bed. We don't care if you get a C. And to our son, it was, are you sure you don't have any homework? And so different kids have different experiences here, and different parents value. I know we've got parents in the lower school who don't think we give enough homework, so they take their kids to Kumon to get extra work for them. We have parents and students in the high school say, you're killing us. We're going to look at another school. This is just too much. There's no family time. So we know we have to manage a wide range of expectations as far as this goes. What I want to tell you is that we are having ongoing and deep discussions in our faculty about this. But by changing the structure, by changing the form of the day, there will be a natural consequence for the homework load. Because if the students only have 3 or 4 classes to prepare for, that's 3 or 4 classes of homework for that night, and as opposed to preparing for 5 or 6. And so right there, there will be less homework for students. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So we've covered why are we adapting now, and so now it's time to really get into some of the details about what we're doing. And so where can we improve? I think actually I was supposed to show this in the last rant. So what are the things that we're doing? The curriculum, I want to reassure you, the curriculum is driving the conversation. It's not being driven by the schedule. The core questions that we're asking is, what do we teach? How do we teach it? What's the most effective way to organize our time to teach those things? And so we've had a number of initiatives underway, some for almost 4 years now. This curriculum design, we're participating, and we're engaged in a process called understanding by design. It's also sometimes called backward design, where you start by thinking about what are the outcomes you want to achieve? What should kids know and do when they leave your class? What are the enduring understandings? What are those things that they're going to remember for the test 2 weeks from now? And what are those things they're going to remember 3 years from now when they're thinking back about the class? Because if they're not going to remember it, why are you teaching it? So we're asking those hard questions, and we're designing curriculum around that. Understanding by design, what's essential, enduring, and relevant. We're also exploring the most effective ways to engage students to best prepare them for what we call the 6 C's. We're also looking at experiential education. If you're going to teach in a longer block of time, if you're going to have an 80-minute class period, for example, you really can't do two 40-minute class periods back to back. It's going to kill the teacher and it's going to kill the students. You have to construct a learning experience for the students during that time that is meaningful and engaging. And so we are working with somebody who's an expert in experiential education from Earlham College. He comes up, he's been up here twice, he's coming again tomorrow, and we're working with teachers and engaging in conversations, how to do experiential education effectively. I use Winthrop as an example of experiential education, and I'll be the first one to tell you, it's an uneven experience. There are some Winthrops that would just blow your socks off. They're the most incredible learning experiences in the world, and others, frankly, that I think maybe could have ended in a week, and kids who've gotten as much out of them as they do. And so this is training our teachers to make sure that we know how to use time effectively and that we construct those learning experiences in the best way possible. We're also doing online and expanded course offerings. So this hybrid learning consortium that we've joined, it is similar schools to ours. It is schools that are independent schools. There are about 10 of us in the consortium now, and taught by teachers in the consortium. And their class sizes are limited to 17. So they're not MOOCs, they're not massive online open courses. These are SPOCs, specialized personal online courses. Those kids are held accountable for the work they do, and there's high standards in those courses. So by joining that consortium, we expanded the offerings that Maumee Valley has by 100 classes. There are 100 different classes that kids could sign up for. Now, they're not offered every semester, but that's what's in the course catalog. So we've expanded the offerings, and we've limited, by the way, the number of online courses they can take to one a year. So, but it allows us to expand our breadth of offerings. So those are some of the things that we've done already. And again, I want to emphasize that it's the curriculum that is driving the conversation, and not the schedule. These are the things that we're looking to educate for, what we call the 6 C's: character education, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, communication, and citizenship. So we feel like we've been pretty collaborative in this process so far. The board is very involved. We've had student involvement, faculty involvement, alumni involvement, and parent involvement. We have a task force that is this big. And you can see we have board members on it. We have parents on it. We have community leaders. These are people who don't attend our school. We have a lot of faculty and administrators on it. And we have representatives from student body. This is a conversation that's been going on for a couple of years now. And they've been involved in many discussions about the curriculum and about the schedule and really the whole vision, the personal, experiential, and global vision. That task force had 3 subcommittees last year, one on assessment. That group was busy developing electronic portfolio idea that we are piloting this year in the middle school. An electronic portfolio is a way to start to think about how kids collect evidence to demonstrate their learning in a way that's different than reducing it to an A, B, or C. Now, I don't know that we'll ever be able to get away from A, B's, and C's as long as colleges are demanding it. We'll continue to place those grades on things, but this is a richer way to communicate what students are learning and how they're learning and what they're interested in and what they're passionate about. It creates a narrative, and the narrative is so important. It's important for the development of the self. It's also important in the college application process. Students have a story to tell. We've created a portrait of a Maumee Valley graduate, and you can see the elements of our mission there: enlightened, compassionate, and contributing global citizens. This is in your packets, by the way. I'm not going to read it to you now, but our mission is embedded in this, and the actual document. This is a graphic representation of it. The actual document is much richer and gives us, the conversation that led to this is, what do we want our graduates to look like? What skills do we want them to have? What do we want them to know when they graduate? So a rich conversation and a very guiding one. Then we have a group doing change management. These are some people who have some skills in bringing an organization of this size, You know, they say it's harder to change the course of history than it is to change a course in history. And so moving an organization like this that has many traditions takes time, and it takes buy-in and participation from all the constituents involved. So this is our path. We're doing curriculum work. We've engaged people in neighborhood gatherings. We've attended many Isaacs and NAIS conferences. Those are our professional organizations. Board members have gone to those with faculty and with administrators. We've brought in outside experts, scheduling experts, experiential learning experts, understanding by design experts. They've all worked with our faculty, technology, iPad introduction experts. So we're not going this alone. We do in-services, late start dates. It's all been working on these things that we're telling you about today. And we're going to have a new schedule as a result of all of this work leading up to that. And we're not in this conversation alone. The things that we're talking about doing, all the independent schools in the country are talking about doing. This is a big conversation, and it's been going on for years now. Innovation, and you know, you've all heard it, kids will have 5 to 7 careers before they're done. Not jobs, careers. So adaptability, creativity, communication, social things. This is what people in education are talking about. So we also created a schedule task force, and Kim Beatty, or Kim Spurgeon, I'm sorry, Kim, has led us in this and done an extraordinary job. These are the people who worked directly on taking our ideas and realizing a schedule from them. So lots of work integrating a lot of disparate ideas, including ideas that you've given us. There were more than 100 sessions that were held between parents, faculty, to touch base on these things. So we had lots and lots of meetings between Kim and lower school teachers and primary teachers and UI teachers, middle school teachers, and so on, throughout the school, fine arts teachers, to make sure that we were getting as many things right as possible. Will we get all things right? No, not out of the gate, I'm sure. But we will continue to work on it, and it's our job this year to continue to work on it even more. This is some of the key this is some of the process that some of you maybe participated in, where we had some mock schedules up on the board, and we asked people to provide feedback on it. And these are some of the big things that we took away from it. These were the positives. And the positives of 5-term schedule, the concept of intensives and longer class lengths, overwhelmingly positive response to those things. Overwhelmingly negative response to additional late start dates, more breaks, changing the holidays and the break times, and year-round school. So we heard you. We're doing these things. We are not doing these things. And see, these are some of the other schools that we're aware of that have embarked on this path. Hawkins is a school that we visited. It's down the road in Cleveland. They're doing some really great things there when they have an intensive schedule. Colorado College has been doing this kind of a schedule for years. The urban school in San Francisco I visited last year when I was in California. High Tech High. These are schools that are embarked on the same path we are, and some of them, like Hawkins, have been doing it for 5 years now. So there's a lot that we can learn from there. So we like to think that we're early adopters, but not pioneers. There are others that have been down this road before us. So we asked students to tell us what they loved, what the non-negotiables are for them about an upper school schedule. And they said our win room, our relationships with our teachers, and our community. So we respected those and kept those in mind as we worked our way through the schedule. So I'm going to show you some slides now of different schedules illustrating different aspects of the schedule. So this is what an upper school year looks like. Begin the year with an intensive, then term 2 is a rotation. That's a regular series of classes in long block. Term 3, another intensive, second intensive. Term 4, rotation. Term 5, intensive. The intensives are roughly 3 weeks long, and the rotations roughly 12 weeks long. I get that right there? 12 weeks? 13. And so what happens in those intensives? Well, regular courses can happen in those intensives. Students can take physics, for example, in those intensives, or they could study the ecology of Maumee Bay, where they are doing real work that's meaningful. So they go out to the bay and they do water quality testing, and they maybe are challenged to take on some of the real problems in our community. And they might follow that up if they're in that science path, that's their proclivity and their passion, with a second intensive in marine biology. And then they might take that passion and combine it with the arts and do a digital photography that uses animals that follows up on their interests in science and connects those in an interdisciplinary way. So that's just one model, wanted to illustrate what might happen there. I talked to a girl, she was a senior, who had done an intensive at Hawken, a physics intensive, and here's what she told us. She said, I was always afraid of physics, and it was the last thing I got to. I wasn't good at it. I was bad at science in general. And so I had 5 classes. The last thing I would get to when I was doing my homework was my science because I dreaded it. I didn't understand it. I didn't want to go talk to my teacher because I didn't think I understood it well enough. I wasn't comfortable. And so I avoided it. And so science has always been a struggle for me. I'm an English person, she said. And so she said I took the physics as an intensive. And so I had 3 weeks where I wasn't distracted by English and social studies and math and foreign language homework. I could focus on my physics work. That's what I thought about every day. I woke up thinking about it. That's what I studied. And I got to know my teacher. I couldn't help but get to know my teacher because that was the only teacher I was with throughout the day. And I immersed myself in physics, and I got it. I got comfortable with it, and I found out I could do it. And I got confidence. And then in her term 2 rotation, she took her second semester as a regular rotation of classes, and she said it was great. I could manage it fine in that context. So what I should say here is that each of these is the equivalent of a semester in terms of minutes. You have the same number of minutes in these 3 weeks in this intensive as you do in a term 2 rotation, and I'll show you a little bit more detail on what a rotation looks like as you do here, as you do here and here. And so each of those translates to a semester's worth of work. This is what it might look like if your path is arts. That's what your passion is. And so you might build your intensives around your art interests. And you might do, for example, the science of glass blowing and do an interdisciplinary work in that regard. Okay. So I mentioned earlier that almost an hour a day is lost in transitions. And as you transition from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. This is what the structure of the day looks like during a rotation. 2 70-minute classes and 2 85-minute classes. And we start every day with a welcoming. We don't do that in the high school now. So they have a 20-minute advisee or assembly time. It's every other day. And so those are times set aside for advising. We think advising is so important at Maumee Valley, and yet the only time in the high school set aside for advising is during lunch, once a week. They have advisee meeting in the lunchroom. Have you ever been in the lunchroom during lunch? It is loud. So this provides curriculum time. If you value it, if you treasure it, you have to give it time. And so this is an opportunity for us to develop some curriculum in there. How do kids develop portfolios? Where's that conversation going to happen? How do they think about and reflect on, and when do they, about their passions and their interests? It's time for them to reflect and think about that. So there will be a curriculum that's being developed in the high school now on advisee. How do we make good use of that time to help our kids grow and to achieve some of those goals that we have in mind? break, it's important that the classes don't just butt up against each other, that kids actually have a little bit of time to go to their locker, get a drink of water, didn't need to do that, and maybe talk to their friends, stretch a little bit before going back to class. This business person's lunch, right now if kids have a 20-minute lunch, they need to eat lunch, and they need to meet in their clubs. We have probably 15 clubs in the high school right now. They meet at lunchtime. Kids go to lunch, they get their lunch, they go to their club meetings, they maybe have 5 minutes, at most 10 minutes to do that. We don't value it, we don't give it time, and these are influential things like this business club that I talked about earlier. This gives time for it in the day. And it also gives time for assemblies and other things that are longer nature that we can do without interrupting the class period. And again, between Class C and Class D, there's a break. And here we have assembling and advising. I mentioned advising time a few minutes ago. We're looking at the other one. Business person's lunch, eat and meet, time to collaborate. More time to breathe with the breaks. Okay, here's what a rotation looks like. It's a 5-day schedule, and that means they're not tied to the days of the week. So, for example, tomorrow we don't have classes. If tomorrow were day 5 happens on Monday. Right now in our schedule, whatever classes we're going to meet tomorrow, you just miss, right? And so they move over to Monday so that things continue. And so you can see how classes meet 4 of the 5 days in the rotation. We just highlighted the Spanish so that you could see that it has 2 85-minute periods and 2 70 periods in a 5-day rotation. This is in, there's a copy of this in your packet, so you can look at it more. Here's a schedule overview. This is too complicated to read here, I know, but it's freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior schedules. And these are examples of a kid who has an interest in arts versus an interest in sciences. And so you can compare them. These are just illustrations because we want to think through all the different variations that we could possibly have. Again, this is in your schedule. And then this is also in your packet, I'm sorry. This graphic attempts to tie together the elements of our mission, our vision, and our schedule in one place and talking about the things that we hope to accomplish. So I hope you'll spend some time looking at that, and I hope that's helpful to you. By going to a block schedule, we will reduce stress by reducing homework in part, by reducing the number of different transitions in a day. We will increase opportunities and choices for students, largely through intensives. And we'll prepare students better for college and life by giving them time to pursue interests and to develop their own narrative. This is a middle school intensive rotation, very similar to the high school, but whereas the high school was 3-week intensives, this is 2-week intensives. So they're shorter. We've got them at the beginning and the middle and the end of the year. High school's got a lot more flexibility. So if for some reason they wanted to put that second intensive, if they want it in January, they can have it in January. If they want it in February, they can do it in February. I mean, there's just more flexibility and fluidity in middle school schedule than there is in the high school. But again, it gives an example of the kinds of things that they could do in those 2-week-long intensives. These intensive meet for 2 weeks, and the regular classes meet for 15 weeks. So this is a 6-day rotation in the middle school, not a 5-day rotation. So they move through, and you can see, well, I'll highlight some of the specials in there, but they go through on a 6-day rotation. Again, this is in your packets. We value fitness, and we know that kids' brains work better when they get up and move around and exercise. So we have a fitness class every day in the middle school, except for day 3, where they do their assembly. And then we wanted to highlight that in the schedule that we are launching next year, we are going to continue to have a focused class period on math and on world languages because of the kinds of skills that we're developing in kids in those areas. Those will continue to meet 5 out of the 6 days in the rotation for 60 minutes at a time. The specials blocks, we have time built in for string ensemble. We have time built in for kids to take design classes, arts classes, coding classes, and those kinds of things. The English language arts and social studies will be taught in interdisciplinary classrooms. The teachers and the English teachers, the social studies teachers will collaborate to teach those classes. So they will be looking at skills that they each need and each teach, like writing skills, research skills, reading and interpretation. Those things they can do together, and then they can use readings from either subject area. They can read fiction, novels, or they can read nonfiction and social studies related work, all tied together. Or they can split that period up if they want to do special lessons in each subject area. They'll have some flexibility in doing that. And here's an overview of the schedule. You'll notice that there's time for arrival, check-in. We come together as a group every morning in advisee, and we leave as a group at the end of the day. So we welcome students into the school, and we say goodbye to them at the end of the day. Specials will still be their fine arts here. And by the way, there is overlap with this so that students can still do string ensemble in the middle school and the upper school, because there's an overlap with the upper school schedule when the upper school students can do strings. So that's an overview, and again, you'll have that to look at in your packets. And this is a similar graphic that ties in this schedule with our values and our mission and our vision. In the lower school, similar, and again, even more flexibility for the teachers about when those intensives are. If they don't want to start the first week of school with student choice, that, by the way, that's just an example. It could be the biome project could be in the first weeks of school, but let's say the primary wants to spend the first week of school getting kids accustomed to their routines in their classes. They have the flexibility to do that. And those are the kinds of things the faculty is working on now, is how they'll organize that. But we just wanted to illustrate that they will have these times. So for example, the upper intermediate did their biome projects where that's what they did all day. Or the kids last year did a social studies project where they did that all day for a couple of weeks. So we've already piloted these ideas in lower school classrooms to great success and popularity with the kids, and I think with the families as well. So again, we want to embrace our strengths. This is an upper intermediate example of a 6-day rotation. So they're on a similar rotation as the middle school. And I'm not going to go through the details on it, in part because I think it's getting late and you're feeling restless to me. But also, these are in your packets, and so you can look at these. And then please come to one of those follow-up meetings where you can look at that. We begin the day with a home group and end the day with a home group in the lower school. We have STEM classes, science and math. We have more science and math than we currently have now, built into the new schedule. And then humanities classes, blocks with the English and the social studies classes. We have specials blocks. And you can see in the afternoon we have world languages rotating. And this, by the way, is primary and lower intermediate. World languages, tech media rotating through the week in their lab schedule. And then this is an upper intermediate look at how they'll use those blocks. This is a primary schedule, lower intermediate, upper intermediate. Okay, and that's how we tie it all together with that graphic. So, this is the school year calendar. It begins on basically the same time as we begin now and ends at the same time. So we have not lengthened the school year to make this happen. And we're very excited by this work. It's energizing all of us. It's stimulating lots of really deep conversations that get at who we are what we teach and how we teach. We're confident that these next steps in adapting to the future, these next steps in our school's rich history will help our students be less stressed, will give them more choices and more opportunities, and make them better prepared for college and beyond. And as I said at the beginning, we've covered these things, how we've stayed relevant for 130 years, why we feel that now's the time to change or to adapt, and we've outlined a little bit of the things that we are doing. Not just the schedule, but we talked about some of the other things that we have going with the curriculum. And I want to, this is a quote from a student at Maumee Valley, is giving me the vehicle to go anywhere I want to go, and all I have to do is put gas in the car. This was made yesterday after our presentation to the students, which I really loved. Your engagement is very important to us, and I showed you at the beginning some upcoming meetings. We'll send those out to you in an email tomorrow so that you can get those on your calendars, and we hope that you'll continue to stay engaged in the process. Will help us think of anything that we haven't thought of, and that together we'll continue to have a great school and serve our kids well for today and for the future. And I believe we have another commercial to go out on. Oh yes, as Deb, who's behind the scenes here pushing buttons, reminds me that with this we will have less stress, more options and choices, and better preparation. These are the meeting dates, and now for the commercial.
Philip's a middle schooler at Maumee Valley, and he wanted to learn sign language, so we added an online class.
As you can see, Harlan's an artist. Harlan, what's unique about you?
Everything and my muscles.
Last semester, Thomas explored coral reefs, Sophia studied biology in Boston, and Jessica brought back culture from Tanzania.
We really wanted to dig into some math concepts, so we planted a garden.
You've got carrots!
Because at Maumee Valley, you can do that.
Thank you all for being here tonight. We hope you liked what you heard tonight. I'm going to be around in the lobby afterwards. Please stay around and talk if you like. And we would like, if you have any comments or questions, to leave those. We have a couple of baskets in the back of the room. If you'd like to leave those now, if you want to send us an email, that's okay. But we would like to hear from you. And we would also hope that you can make it to one of the sessions that we're going to do as a follow-up. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.